situations. There is conflict that is ensued intentionally, and all of that. So I love the idea of celebrating Black relationships with this hashtag relationship goals. I also think we need to be really careful about what external standards we set around what relationship goals are, and really think about what that means before we try to apply them to our own lives.
Well, to that point that you're making, and I think this is really important to understand, if we could somehow have a juxtaposition between these types of relationships that you see on this ratchet television and the modeling of Angela and Vance, Barack and Michelle, like if we had more of that, more prevalent in the media and being put out there for people to understand and see how they work things out, I wouldn't have as much problem with this type of television. But what happens is when you don't have anything else, it begins to become a part of who you are. And you begin to think that it's okay that if your man is looking at another woman, and you're sitting down at the restaurant, to pick up a glass of water and throw it in his face. Or it's okay for you to go and punch a man in his face because he was looking at your girl crazy and you didn't like it. Like that kind of thing is right. Being taught and normalized as being okay. And we don't have anything else to say that's one way and that's what we do for entertainment. But in the real world, this is how adults deal with their problems. For me is problematic. Yes, and I really like that you've outlined that. So one of the things that what you're talking about is the media, and so when we talk about media, I'm talking about social media and all of its many platforms. I'm talking about reality television. I'm talking about music and lyrics and music videos, magazines, tabloids, television, film. Right. So we're talking about media broadly defined. And the reality is the way that our society is constructed, media is a powerful socialization tool. So, and what I mean by socialization is we use media among other institutions. So, we have family, we have parents, we have schools, we have our religious communities. All of these things serve as socialization institutions in our world. But the media is a powerful one, in that it does give us a sense of normalcy. It gives us a sense of appropriateness. It gives us boundaries around expectations in our lives for everybody, right? So we're talking irregardless of gender and race. Did I just say irregardless? I did. We're talking... And
you got it,
irregardless, irrespective... I'm not going to underestimate what you're saying because the principalities of what you're saying remain true.
You had to go there. I know that's immediately where you went. Sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, my vocabulary fails me too. So regardless of race, gender, social economic status, all of those other pieces, the media is a powerful socialization agent for us. But what you point out, Tomas, is the problem of Black people being stereotyped and being limited in how we are presented in the media and how it reflects back on us. So it is a different situation if there is, so let's say, I don't watch this show, but I hear it's pretty grimy, House of Cards, right? Yes. So you have this guy, the main character is like in, this powerful political family, but the guy is basically like a psychopath, right? He will use whatever means possible to get ahead.
By any means necessary.
Right?
Absolutely.
So it's one thing to have him on the media, as well as I'm going to juxtapose him with somebody completely different, like a Phil Dunphy on Modern Family, the quintessential goofy white heterosexual dad that is there for his family and has a big heart. It's one thing if you have that spectrum of folks that are reflected back to you on the media that look like you and you can identify with, and you have people in your real community that look like that. It's different if you only ever get the character Ghost from Power. If all of your presentation on media of Black men are men who are subverting the law, men who are emotionally restricted, men who are quote unquote hard, men who are using whatever means that they can to get ahead, and there's no other counterpoint. The impact of the media is way more deleterious than if you have that greater variety. And I think that that's what you're pointing out in terms of the ratchet TV and looking at folks external to your community, anybody in the public eye, looking at that as a goal, right? Like that's not even real. That's one part of that problem. But then what you're seeing is such a restricted and limited way for relationships to play out that's equally problematic for you if that's what you're looking towards. So I think it's great that we do have counterpoints like Michelle and Barack. I think that Courtney Vance and Angela Bassett. I also think, all right, now stay with me, Tomas. I also think it's interesting that we have Jay-Z and Beyonce in the public eye, because I think that their relationship and how it is played out so far in the media has provided a more nuanced component to the conversation than just a healthy relationship versus a non-healthy relationship. What I think we get with Beyonce and Jay-Z, so Beyonce's got her Lemonade personal story that she told last year. And then we had Jay-Z come out with his personal story of 444 that came out this month. I'm losing track. A few weeks ago?
It was earlier this month, yes.
Earlier this month. And so what's come out is a lot of
month, maybe a couple of weeks, I don't know.
Yes, sometime this summer in
right.
recent history. And what they've done in that is expose, I'm going to say allegedly expose challenges that they've had in their relationships around fidelity and around intimacy and around trust. So, I'm going to also say, I don't know what goes on between Beyonce and Jay-Z when the doors are closed. I have no idea about the health, strength, vitality of their relationship. I don't know how much of what we see is real, how much of what we see is fabricated, that no one will ever know but those two people that are in the relationship. I think that's true whether a relationship is in the public eye or not, but I think it's amplified when you're talking about celebrities. But I think at least their willingness to present some chinks in the armor, at least their willingness to present like we're not perfect and here's how we've struggled, adds a shade to the conversation that hasn't been in existence before. And that's encouraging to me. And I think it's allowed, there's been these conversations that have happened, at least in my spheres of social media, around Black women's experiences, trying to be in relationship with Black men, rejections that Black women have experienced, hurts that we've experienced, insecurities that have developed because of that. And Black men have, I think, started to be a little bit more open in their conversations about their insecurities and approaching intimate relationships, their challenges in trying to navigate how to be intimate, as well as be this stereotype of being this hard kind of masculine, completely composed individual, and how the psychological toll that has. So I'm encouraged that maybe we have the opportunity to have a more healthy conversation in the Black community around that can move us forward than kind of where we've been in the past.
I'm going to agree with you on all of that. And I think it's interesting. I've listened, who hasn't listened to Beyonce's Lemonade, and also listened to Jay-Z's 4:44. And well, that is what it is. It is 4:44 by J:Z. I mean, get with the graphics. Get with the graphics. Get with the graphics. Okay, I'm being graphically correct by saying this.
Okay,
but seriously, one of the things I found when I listened to that was I said, you know what, this is scripted. I believe it's scripted. I believe it's well thought out marketing. I believe that it creates empathy, and I believe that it pulls me into streams and record sales. And I felt all of that. But I don't necessarily think any of that is a negative, because so often you have these scripted conversations that go in another direction. And this is a couple that had this infidelity. The degree to which it was what it was, we will never know. But
right.
For what it is, this is a couple that had infidelity in their relationship. They went through the stages of anger and grief and bitterness and all of this, and then found a way to make it work, because at the end of the day, they had love. They needed to rebuild the trust. You had to accept your vulnerability. You had to apologize and all of this. And look, they now have twins. So obviously there's a happy ending to the story. I think that's important for people to see, because if we're really going to take and look at these artists' lives and try to model ourselves after them, whether this story is true or not, or how much of it is true or not, is not as important as it gives us hope that we can go through a difficult period in our own relationships and come out on the other side a little bit better than how we went in, you know?
Right.
Analyzing those reasons. Why did I cheat in the first place? What was it about me? And I think that Jay-Z's album is brilliant because he goes there. And not since Jodeci have I really heard a black man cry. You know what I'm saying? Let's be real. You know, those Jodeci boys, they literally had a song called Cry for You. Okay, so I know you did. I know you did, because you loved a strong yet sensitive brother. I got you. I see you.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for all the listeners that's out there. I'm looking for
shout out to the strong but sensitive brothers. Tweet her at Dr. Nikki Knows.
Ooh, I'm laughing, but I'm very serious. No, so
right.
We did have a couple folks that sent me tweets with questions, and that was one of them. I think it's a nice way to kind of delve a little bit deeper.
Okay, great. Let's go into the tweets.
So at KD Solari, she said, "Why does it seem like men have to choose between being masculine / macho versus gentle or affectionate?" And I think that is a really challenging question, and I do think that is part of what is enticing and hopeful about this 4:44, to quote you, Thomas.
Thank you very much for being graphically correct. Thank you.
Correct. About that album, I think it does point out. I'm not a man. For those of you all who are listening, I've never been a man. So I don't really know what y'all do, how y'all do what y'all do. I'll let Tomas also put his answers out there. But I would imagine that it's got to be a really difficult space to navigate if you are growing up as a black man and you're socialized and everything reflected back to you, these kind of limited ideas about black masculinity that we talked about last week on our hashtag Black Boy Joy show. And I think you can still find it on Spreaker if you want to go back and listen to that specific conversation. So I think it's got to be a hard space to navigate, moving from there to being this gentle, affectionate, engaged partner, because that is kind of the quintessential piece that makes intimate relationships, romantic relationships different. It's that softness. It is that sense of intimacy. It is not the same as having a friendship relationship. It's not the same thing as other relationships that you may have. But especially if you're talking about a heterosexual relationship, you want that person to be able to be a soft spot for you to land when you're having difficult times in your life, which happens for everyone. And so I would imagine that there is a lot of challenge in being able to kind of turn off this one sense of self and evolve a whole nother vocabulary and language and way of seeing the world to be more gentle, to be more tender in relationship with women. I would add that, that being tender and being affectionate, quote unquote, soft by men isn't rewarded out in the world. You don't get ahead in our society economically and education in your career if you're quote unquote soft, right? That most of the industries that we work in, there's a competitive aspect